All right, lesson 2-1, relations and functions. In this section, we will be identifying functions, identifying domain and range, and evaluating functions. So to start with, we're going to learn some new vocab. So first one is relation. So a relation is a set of pairs of input and output values. So that's just another way of saying x's and y's. Typically, we write this as an ordered pair. And we can graph it on a coordinate plane. Now, if we look at our example here, you'll notice that we have our ordered pair, and then it's separated by commas, and then we have these curly brackets on the outside. So these symbols represent that this group of points belong together. So that's how we would identify a set of numbers. Now, a function is a relation in which each element of the domain, so those are going to be your inputs, so your x values, is paired with only one element of the range, or your output value. So those are going to be the y's. So basically what this is telling us is that if we have a function, our x values can only show up once. And it doesn't matter how many times the y values show up. Now with functions, there are some special types of pairings. So the first one is called one-to-one. So this is when each element of the domain pairs to exactly one unique element of the range. Okay. So that means that for every x value you have, it matches to a unique y value. So if we look at our example down here, this is our example of one-to-one. So these are our x values, and then these would be kind of our y values if we want to think of it on terms of a graph. So 1 pairs to D, 2 pairs to B, and 3 pairs to A. Okay, so one element in our domain pairs to one element in the range. Now these can't go to the same one in the range. So if 2 went up to D, that means D is shared. So it is no longer unique. Okay, so 1 can only go to one element in the range, and none of these can be shared on this side. That's what makes it one-to-one. It's okay if it's not, doesn't have an x value to it, okay, but they can't be shared. All right, next one is onto. So each element of the range corresponds to an element of the domain. So that means that every single element in our range is accounted for, and it doesn't matter if it's shared between our domain. Okay, so like this one, we can't say is onto because C doesn't correspond to anything back in the domain. Okay? And again, it's okay if this one is shared. So this one is not one-to-one because C is shared by 2 elements in our domain. And then bijective means that it is both one-to-one and onto. Okay? So it's going to look something like this. So everything in the range has to be accounted for, and it has a unique correspondence back to the domain. So again, these can't be shared by anything in the domain. Okay? Now these are cases that can happen, but these cases do not happen every single time. So these are special cases of functions.